What was your worst/weirdest experience at somebody else's house? Went to a friend's house. We came in and somebody started yelling and swearing at him from another room. For no reason and impromptu. Scary. Threatening and abusive sounding. It was his dad and the dad didn't realize I was there. The kid was cool about it. Just kind of. Maybe we should just go for a walk. It was how cool the kid was that unnerved me. Just his day to day. At someone's birthday party at her house. She divided us into groups and made us write songs about her. Stayed at my friend's house one time and found out her family only uses red light bulb in their house because an astrologer told them to do so. A buddy and I were walking down the street and noticed a drunk guy bothering a woman outside a store and his balls were hanging out of his shorts. We stopped to help, and so does some guy in an army jacket. And after the cops come by to deal with the drink guy, army guy invites us over to have a beer. We were about 14 or so at the time. We said sure. Get to his apartment and he gives us a beer each and shows us his big knife. Tells us how to gouge out eyes and how to shoot someone under the chin at the throat pointing up so if by chance they survive, they will be paralyzed. Then proceeds to demonstrate on me a choke move he was taught, which fucking hurt. My friend had the knife in hand just in case army guy didn't let go. After I was let go and able to breath, we pieced out of there fast. The longer we sat there, the more scared I was getting. Haven't thought about that for some time. When I was in college there was this redneck named Scott who lived w/his mother and was desperate to leave and move in w/me. When I was helping him move, put his mom lit up a joint which I ignored. Then she tried to grope my crotch. Careful. Scott shouted, "My mom is a pervert." Over the years, that is meme for me. I remember when I was a kid, probably around 10 or so, we went to friends of our families for dinner. The husband and wife got into a very loud screaming match over whether to serve creamed corn or frozen corn. I'm talking in each other's faces and being shrilly loud. 10-year-old me was fascinated by how such a mundane object could arouse such passions. And of course I wanted, see how it turned out, but we were instead quickly ordered into the car and left. Still never understand how corn caused such a disagreement. I found out later they got divorced. When I was about 10, my cousins and I were at my grandma's house in Oklahoma. My uncle Rick came home drunk and my grandma started yelling at him and hitting him with a rolled up magazine. My other uncle Cecil, who was only 4 years older than us, told us kids to run out the back door and hide at the creek cause Rick's a mean drunk. It's about midnight and we run down to the creek and stand around for about 10 minutes and walk back. We come in through the front door with muddy feet and leaves in our hair. My grandma yells at us saying, "What were we doing outside?" We say we were hiding at the creek. She says, "Who told you to hide at the creek?" We all point at Uncle Cecil who was in the corner laughing. She starts beating him with the magazine and we all run to the bedroom and jump in bed and pull the covers over our heads until the fighting stopped. Well, my late wife's clinically psychotic brother pulled a gun on me for no reason at Thanksgiving one year. Also her parents were trash people. I found a hardcore porn magazine under my friend's mattress, top bed on a bunk bed. So it was about at eye level, must have been sticking out a bit, because something caught my attention. We were 10 years old maybe. She just blew it off, like it was nothing. A year later my mom banned me from sleeping over at my friend's house. She was still welcome at our house. I was secretly relieved, because the vibe was weird over there for a million reasons. When I was an adult, my mom finally told me that the reason for the ban was because teachers suspected sexual abuse. My mom taught at our school. I'm sure it got reported to CPS but nothing came of it. Anyway, pretty sure the magazine I found that day was their version of bedtime stories. We went to a foreign classmate's house to do our film class project. He said that, since we are making a horror film, we could try filming in the dark storage space above the dining room. So indeed he climbed up there to get some establishing shots, but as soon as he crawled in, we found out the ceiling wasn't made of concrete and he ended up breaking the ceiling and falling down. Luckily he wasn't hurt, but now there's a big human-sized hole in the ceiling. Needless to say his parents were pissed, and we had to change our filming location to my aunt's condo. Went to a friend's early Saturday in middle school, possibly 9th grade. Went grocery shopping with her, her sister and mom. Well, we get back, and I had a bunch of bags of groceries waiting in the garage by the door. My friend said to just go in. I didn't want to because her dad was home, and I didn't meet him yet. My friend insisted it was fine. I went in from the garage door, and when I looked in directly to the right in the kitchen, her dad was cooking something on the stove, in only his tighty whities. I don't remember which expletive he yelled, but I immediately went back out the way I came. I can only imagine the face I was making. Somehow, my friend convinced me to still stay the night. I was deeply embarrassed and avoided her father. Lol, I felt like such a bad guest. I always knock, and I was mostly mad at her for telling me to go in. Hilarious now though. Oh no, you just woke up a very effed up memory. When I was in high school, we got a new student, a girl who got transferred because of bad behavior. I was an outcast. She was an outcast. So we befriended each other. Although our social status was the only thing we had in common, I realized very quickly that she was a pathological liar. From the very first day, she had been telling other students that she had missed her period. After a month of crying wolf, we started ignoring her false pregnancy drama. I'm picking this example as it's relevant to the story, but there was a myriad of other instances where we caught her in a lie. One day she claimed she was doing coke with the elite every weekend. The next day she had never even tried weed. It's a bit challenging to develop a friendship with someone whom you cannot trust at all, not even when they are telling you about oatmeal they had for breakfast. So, after half a semester of pregnancy scares, she actually got pregnant. Her boyfriend was an alleged abuser. She weaved too many stories about him. He was sterile, so he beat her up. Because the baby wasn't his, they were breaking up twice a week. There were 2 other possible baby daddies, and one of them was twice her age. It was a headache listening to all of this. One day my friend and her boyfriend invited me over for dinner. She was very pregnant, and it turned out the kid was his. Whatever. We were eating and talking about random things, when the boyfriend nonchalantly said he was going to F the baby after it's born. My friend took it pretty lightly and made a joke out of it. I was in complete shock and wanted to disappear. We stopped being friends shortly after high school. A long time ago I went to my weed dealer's apartment to get some weed. He was a tough guy, all tatted up, hung around some shady characters. I get there, and he has 2 kittens he just adopted. One of the kittens takes a liking to me, so I'm in a room with these harder tough guys. And while we are parring this blunt around, I'm sitting in a lazy boy chair, and this cat is sitting on my chest and kneading its paws into me and purring. It was the weirdest environment for this to be happening. When I was a kid I went over to a friend's house. At some point they went to have dinner. They meaning the whole family. I wasn't at any point asked to join them. So while they ate I sat in the living room and played on their Atari. They had a room furnished as a mini chapel dedicated to worshipping Satan, with a big upside cross and an altar and whatnot. In retrospect I wish I could have taken a photo. This one time I was at my ex-GF's GF during that time, and we weren't doing very well in the relationship. We were in the driveway talking, and we ended up sitting in her car while we talked about how the relationship wasn't the same as before, and how we weren't really feeling like it was going anywhere. The regular talk before a breakup. It was pretty tense and kinda sad. We noticed that the bathroom window was on, so we lowered our voices as we didn't want her family to hear us talking about breaking up. She was about to cry when we heard a massive, compressed fart echo through the confines of the porcelain toilet. The atmosphere changed entirely. We tried not to laugh, but it was impossible not to. Her mom called her with doubt as she asked her name. We rushed the hell out of the car and proceeded to laugh our asses off. That day, whatever her mom ate before laying the log saved our relationship. We didn't break up until a few months later. I went over to a place that a person I was dating lived. He and his roommate of 3 years had insisted on permanently keeping all the windows open and essentially allowing the house to become overgrown. They had multiple birds living in there. Also were random things written throughout the house in pen, Sharpie, crayon, as if whenever they had a thought they'd scribble it down. We got high as balls and watched Evil Dead. I got so tripped out during one scene I just left without explanation. Went to a friend's house when I was around 10 to play with a couple of other friends. Her younger brother forgot to shut the baby gate when we went to the basement. As soon as we were all in the basement, her baby brother fell down the stairs while he was in his walker. That's one of the scariest tests I've ever seen. Back then, I was sure that he had died, especially since it took a good 5 seconds before he started crying. When I was 14 I went to a friend's house for a birthday party sleepover. There was 5 other girls invited. After dinner we got settled in the lounge room to watch horror movies. Her parents came in and sat on the couch, took out 2 huge bongs and got stoned. They started commentating the movie as we watched it, like it was a live sports event. This was the first time all us girls had seen drugs or been around someone on drugs. So weird. Birthday girl was so embarrassed. We never went back to her house for a sleepover after that one. One time I went to a sleepover when I was 12 and the mom was there the whole time. I don't just mean in the house doing her own thing. I mean she had a sleeping bag out on the living room floor with all of us. Most awkward sleepover I've ever been to. Worst part is the girl didn't even think it was weird. Also we have to go to bed at 8 o'clock, so there's that. In college I drank way too much. One weekend a friend invited a group of us to go ice fishing and then stay the night at his parents' house. I became blackout drunk, and in the morning I woke up in his childhood bedroom, which still had old toys, silly wallpaper and rocket chip blankets. It was so surreal. I sat there for what felt like forever, terrified, desperately trying to remember where I was and how I got there. It's one of only a few times I've legitimately panicked. In college, I went to this girl's house during a free period with 6 or 7 friends. We arrive, and she opens the door, says hello to her father, and immediately strips down to her bra and panties in the living room. We spent 45 minutes hanging out with her and her dad, and the whole time she's walking around in basically nothing. I asked her dad about it at a different time, and he nonchalantly says she's always done this and acted like it was a completely normal thing to do. Also, bonus points for her goth friend who sat there playing with a knife the whole time. When I was around 12 I was over a friend's house playing some video games in her basement. I guess her 10-year-old brother was mad he couldn't play because she had guests, so he walked into the basement naked to scare us out. As a 12 years old we shifted to a small town from our cattle property so we kids could go to high school. I didn't know anyone at school till the weird kid befriended me, invited me home after school one day. There's me thinking great, I'm making friends. When we got there her mom was obviously slightly drunk, no father around that I could see, just sitting in her room talking crap when her mom calls us into her bedroom. So we went in and her mom is lying on a single bed and there's a double in there that we both sort of lounged on. Then her mom starts crying. The girl tells me her dad died about 6 months ago. Him going so sorry to hear that. Her mom starts telling me how he was a bad alcoholic and they'd gone to bed one night. He was back quote spooning her when he died in his sleep with his arms wrapped around the mum. Cause she was drunk till she didn't wake up till quite late and his body had started rigor mortis. She realizes and starts screaming. Daughter runs in. Dad is dead and mum is stuck in his arms. Had to call police to help apparently. She couldn't get out. Best bit though was I was sitting on the bed where he died 6 mths previous, but they'd never changed the sheets or covers. They smelled musty. No wonder the girl acted weird. They both really needed therapy, but this was nearly 50 years ago. Was chilling in my friend's bedroom and his grandma would just stare. It's not even the wholesome kind of staring. It was giving Horrivelane has a knife behind her back vibes. Asked my friend about it and he said she's just like that. Sleepover at my friend's. Family of 6. 2 adults and 4 kids. Ran of toilet paper. And there were 7 to 11 and several other stores were mere blocks away. Gas stations. McDonald's to steal from. They employed the family towel. Poop stains and all. Tacked to the wall. I held my pee all night until I nearly got a kidney infection the next morning. I called my dad to get me as early in the morning as I could.